But anyway, so one of the burning questions was, what is the Bible? And part of my problem is that what we call the Bible, I think everyone here knows this, but today is not what existed in the first century, second century, third century, fourth century. Actually, didn't even occur until the 16th century. And it wasn't until the printing press that we had this book, this solid piece of book that was called Bible. Before that, it was a set of documents. And in the Greek Orthodox Church, I read this really cool thing by this Greek Orthodox scholar about what they believe about the Bible. Well, their belief is that there's 4 scrolls that called the Gospels, which that is their sacred scriptures. And then there's two witnesses, and one witness is what you call the Hebrew Bible, and the other witness is what you call the Epistles, basically. And those are witnesses of the sacred text. And then you have this whole nother layer of documents, which are also sacred, but they don't rise to the level of the 2 witnesses, and they certainly don't rise to the level of the Gospels. And so they kind of see this tiering, and then they go out to another level, which they see as sacred, as inspired, but it's not as inspired as this, not as inspired as this, and not as sacred as the Gospels. Well, as far as I can tell, up until the printing press, that's kind of how all of Christianity looked at the Bible, is that there was the sacred gospel, and everything else bore witness to the gospel. But when the printing press took place, then it turned flat. It all became as if it had equal purpose, equal authority, equal meaning. And I can't find that way of thinking anywhere before the printing press. And so it's form and function. It's what happens when you have things that are separated. You tend to look at them separately. When you have something together, you tend to look at it as being a single unit. So form and function actually has influenced how we define the scriptures. And my question is that appropriate? And then even in the early 1800s, if you were to get a copy of a printed Protestant Bible, in the back of it, they have a whole section of the Apocrypha in the Protestant Bibles. And they would just simply say, this is part of Christian history, but it shouldn't be taken with the same seriousness as the rest of the Bible. Now we don't even have that. Now we don't even, as Protestant, we don't even know those texts exist. You see what I'm saying? But just less than 200 years ago, that was part of the Protestant Bible as well. So you see how our form and function has influenced how we look at the text and how we look at the Bible. So to me, it's very important to ask the question, what is the Bible? Is what we perceive the Bible to be what the Bible is? And in fact, is there such thing as a Bible? Because it wasn't until the 400s that the word Bible ever came into existence. And in the first few centuries, as I understand it, and I'm sure the others will correct me as they want to, but every kind of regent had a list of books which were allowed to be read publicly in church. And they just made a list. They basically said, the Gospels, these books of Paul, whatever, these were the ones that could be allowed read publicly, and the other ones should be studied more privately. And so every region had their kind of list of the ones to be read publicly, and they were suggestions, they weren't edicts. And so even in the 300s, when the so-called canonizing of the scripture, it was just another group of people who said, these are the books to be read publicly. Yes. They weren't saying this is the final anything. They were just saying these are the books. So it really wasn't until the Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, that what we have was set in stone. So again, my question is, what is our authority here? What is it that has created our definition of the scriptures? And how should we look at these things?